Okay, welcome back to another installment of Seed to Shade, where the board gets an opportunity to spend some time with some school folks or community folks to talk about ideas that we believe important. My name is Todd Duell, and I'm one of the board members for the Oakland City Schools, and with me are Amy and Bridget. And I thought before we jumped into the conversation, I'd allow both of you to introduce yourself a little bit, how you're affiliated with the school.
Okay, I'm Bridget Fiore. I've been teaching in Oakwood since 1994, and currently I'm teaching 7th grade in the morning and serving as an SEL interventionist in the afternoon. I love it.
Great.
And I am Amy Samoski. I've been a school psychologist for 16 years, the last 5 here in Oakwood, and then this year I took on the position of SEL facilitator for the district.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for joining me and us and talking a little bit about SEL. So, much like with many things in the schools, it's acronym predominated. So could we talk a little bit about what is SEL?
Right. Well, SEL stands for Social Emotional Learning, and probably the simplest definition comes from the American School Counseling Association, and it's just the mindsets and attitudes that kids and adults need to be really successful in life.
And as we're sort of educating our staff on this, because this is something a little bit new to them as well, we are using that CASEL definition of social emotional learning as a process by which our students and adults kind of learn those non-academic skills that make daily functioning so much easier and make us those more productive members of society. So things like feelings expression and feelings management, self-regulation, responsible decision-making, relationship building. So it's those kind of non-tangible, non-academic skills.
Why the recent surge in SEL awareness?
It actually was brought to the forefront in 1994 when a lot of different scholars got together, people from child development and prevention science, public health, and they all said, okay, what are the skills and competencies our students are going to need to be successful in school and to be successful in life? And so then you saw the development of things like character development programs, anti-bullying prevention programs, conflict resolution, and all of those sort of are grounded in the thought of SEL. But all of a sudden now we see it all over, and we see this definite push for more SEL programming. And I think there are a lot of factors that go into why this is now kind of a bigger thing. First, you definitely have in 2019, Ohio came up with SEL standards, and basically they said to schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, we would like you to implement these standards within your classrooms. And so schools are charged with doing that. But then you have the pandemic and what it brought to our students, to our staff, to our families. In addition to, we've seen a huge increase and a rise in our anxiety, or in our cases of anxiety and depression. We're definitely having more referrals where that is concerned. So just a lot of those things are making schools and educators say, okay, what can we do to help our kids, to help our families?
The CDC even noticed that there was a 24% increase in mental health visits to the ER in students aged 5 to 11 since the pandemic, and a 31% increase in kids aged 12 to 17. So since the pandemic. So we're really seeing a need to focus on really the whole child so that we can, in fact, support their academics. And it's kind of interesting you say, is this new? So I started teaching way back in 1993. I was teaching 4th grade at that time. The very first lesson that my principal observed my teaching on was a class meeting, where I met with my 4th graders and we talked about what are some strengths in our classroom, some of our weaknesses, what are some skills we need to grow on. And so this is not really a new strategy. Teachers have been trying to figure out how to embed this into their classroom for years, and now we're finally getting more intentional about it.
That's great. And so I'm gonna ask you an unfair question, because I think we could spend maybe the rest of the day with the answer around this, but what are some of the key benefits of SEL?
Yeah, lots and lots of benefits. And I think one of the ones that people kind of miss out on is that actually SEL programming has positive incomes on academic performance. So when I talk about that, the focus of SEL is actually on those non-academic skills. It has this positive benefit on performance, but it also increases classroom engagement and increases connections peer-to-peer and peer-to-teacher, or student to teacher. There's a decrease in emotional distress, a decrease in disruptive behaviors. You just see an increase in empathy, an increase in perspective taking, increased amount of relationships that our students have. So I think there's a lot of benefits that we see coming from SEL programs.
They actually, in school districts that intentionally embed SEL into their programming, have an average of an 11% academic gain. I think something that really speaks to me, even as a parent, is that the World Economic Forum said that 6 out of the 10 workplace skills that they value come from those 5 social-emotional core competencies that we are trying to work to embed into all the classrooms.
So like anything, I assume there are also some misperceptions that go unintended, but in fact exist. So what are some of the bigger ones you spend some time debunking?
Yeah, there definitely are. So one thing that I really would hope that our families and our communities would hear is that SEL has no secret hidden agenda. One thing that we've had to debunk within our schools, though, is that social emotional learning is just for counselors and or therapists. Because at its foundation, social emotional learning is to be embedded throughout the school day and by everybody within an educational environment. So teachers can do it just as effectively as counselors and as therapists. It is something that everybody can do every single day.
This develops long-term sustainable values in value. So can you speak to a little bit about that?
Well, one thing is kind of ironic. Both of our daughters are seniors at Ohio State University this year, but we were reflecting on our orientation with them a few years back. And we were so struck by the concept that they said to our daughters, who were freshmen at that point, 85% of the jobs that you will do have not yet been created. So we have to use these core competencies to teach these mindsets and attitudes that our students need to be ready to do. We don't even know what, you know? So I just think it's so exciting to think that these skills are what can take them into who knows how long.
Mm-hmm. And a meta-analysis was conducted in 2017, which says that schools who have embedded SEL programs are seeing the benefits for their students up to 18 years after graduation. So when we talk about a decrease in mental health symptoms, a decrease in substance abuse and violence and antisocial behaviors that come from SEL programs, these things are being seen well after students graduate and leave high school.
Is this a good investment on behalf of a community member, a local taxpayer?
Anything that schools can do that focuses on helping a child recognize their emotions, regulate themselves, make good decisions, help them in planning and prioritizing and processing on a daily basis is always going to be a good investment. Anytime we invest in our students, it's going to be a good investment.
There's been research to show there's $11 back for every dollar spent on SEL. So we're giving you a big bang for your buck is what we think.
If we just go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we all know that we cannot reach students on an academic level until their emotional and safety needs are met. So we have to start at the bottom and then work our way up, which is also that huge benefit of SEL programming.
So I think just yesterday I received an email from the two of you on the SEL kind of platform, and so that's obviously one way you're communicating with the community in the district, but are there other ways that you're getting the message out?
So, we have updated our SEL website, which we hope parents use and go to. We're also doing a monthly newsletter, so I believe we just put our 3rd one out there for that. We've also started to implement some little programs here and there to get going. So we have a Handle with Care program, which parents can send us the name of their student, no questions asked, because their student needs a little bit of extra, love and care that day. And since that's inception mid-August, we've received over 40 emails from parents seeking that support for their kids. So a little bit of things that way. We're kind of trying to promote some of the programs that are coming through the ESC on some parenting classes, parenting resources. We've become involved with, On Our Sleeves, and we're getting that out to parents. We do want to do some more intentional community activities, and hopefully that will come along maybe after or in the second semester or in the springtime.
Because like Amy said in the very beginning, SEL is actually really a process. And it's going to take a while to fully implement a very systematic program. And so we are focusing this year on adult SEL. So with kind of the theory is like our staff can't help until they even understand it themselves fully.
Yeah.
So much like the teachers, the 47 who have reached out and conveyed an interest, I assume that those watching this, parents and others might reach and go, how can I engage? So how can parents reach out to us, and how should they go about expressing their interest or willingness to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I would encourage them to read that monthly bulletin. We've started to explore those 5 competencies of SEL, and I'm giving some parent ideas of what they can do at home. So those will be in there. Like I said, as soon as maybe after Christmas, we're going to start having some parent education and parent resources that will go out to help them. As Bridget said, and kind of unfortunately, we want to build Rome in a day, but to be successful in doing that, we have to be strategic and systematic about how we go about doing things. So we had to pick a jumping off point. And this year, that has become doing a needs assessment, figuring out where our strengths lie, where our challenges lie, and making sure that our adults within the district, our teachers and our staff members, have a comfort level with SEL before we start to implement more and more practices into the classroom, which is what we've spent the first semester doing. So next semester, I believe there will be more outreach to parents, more activities for them to get involved with. But definitely, I think if you start with the bulletin, read some of those ideas, and even if you say, hey, I have this thought, always email us. We email back right away. We're very invested in, especially those parents who want to know more, who want to be more involved with those practices, because we are very, we promote the idea that it takes a village, and we want that partnership with our families, to work with where SEL is concerned.
I think probably an important takeaway is to know that it's a process, and there's really no defined endpoint. We will just keep going and evolving and connecting. So Amy,
Absolutely.
Bridget, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Sure.